Hello, everyone. It's me, Malice Alice, and today I will be reading a trip story from the website arrowwith.org. The story is called Judged by the Primordial Energy, LSD, and Cannabis by Roger. The events that follow were after I consumed 3 hits of unbelievably strong acid. Yesterday, I had the craziest trip of my life. It started by running through miles of woods with no idea where we were going. It didn't matter, we were free, sprinting through the woods like tribesmen with no care in the world. The sun was peeking through the canopy, and I was with two of my best friends, one of whom was being introduced to the world of psychedelics. I felt like an animal. I didn't have to think where each step would go. My mind would see an area of terrain and would instinctually make sure that I made the right step. I was galloping at full speed, wisping in and out of the bush, winding in and out, and of trees hurtling over logs of nature was one with me, and I was one with nature. While we ran, singing and yelling what sounded like tribal chants, creating waves of vibrations that were intertwined with the nature of the forest and the consciousness of it all. There was a positive, archaic nature energy all around my two friends, and it was as if the energy fields we meshed with the forest. And one of my favorite parts was climbing a 15-foot tree and overlooking the entire canopy and the ground, watching the life emerge beneath the leaves as if it were everything alive and thriving. My friends and I, at one point, hugged this gigantic, near 100-foot tree for about 3 minutes, meshing with the ancient energy of this tree. As we were running and chanting with not a care in the world, I was trying to explain my ideas of consciousness, the universe, oneness of everything, and duality that exists in everything. It seemed as if my linguistic ability had evolved. Everything flowed together with a rhythm. My mind was on point, and every word was connotated with a feeling and a visual. I was also trying to describe to my friends the pure, radiant light of empathy and love and interconsciousness with everything. As I described it, it felt like the feeling was re-emerging into all three of us. The sea of infinite, pure, radiant energy was showing its true nature to us. I explained the duality in everything, night and day, sun and moon, up and down, left and right, awake and asleep, consciousness and the unconsciousness, life and death, the paradox of everything. I told them to imagine the five chakras as life force that flow from the abdomen through the spine as an open flow of energy to the crown chakra, and I explained that the colors connotated with the chakras and that the feelings associated with those colors. I told them, imagine this life force flowing down the crown chakra and out of the body through the pineal gland into the sea of light, how I let go of individualistic, materialistic desire to free myself of negativity to focus on pure light. After about 3 hours of running through the forest, we decided it was time to head back. We finally made our way out of the woods and through the campus back to the apartment. When we were discussing the trip, the woods and life we felt like was some sort of telepathy between us. We could finish each other's sentences. We could read each other's body language. There was no avoiding truth. A negative feeling was seen just as it was. There was no avoiding truth. Truth was translucent for all of us to see. We turned on some loud surround sound music and we just vegged out, feeling the vibration of the music consuming us. About an hour of hanging out in the apartment, two more people showed up, as well as a dealer with more acid, and the two people consumed hits. And the dealer talked to us about how he ate 20 hits and wouldn't think about doing it twice, eating an entire sheet. To me, this was insane, and there was a negative energy about him. He didn't seem to be observing the beauty of things or to be looking for introspective psychoanalysis. He seemed to be escaping his life, and he looked as if his brain was mangled. He was a dull facial expression and signs of sorrow in his eyes. After the new people entered the apartment, things started to go south for me. It seemed as one of the people who had entered the apartment had a very negative aura. Every time I was close to him, it as if his aura was feeding on mine. My entire body would get hot and feeling as if something was ripping at me and trying to tear me apart. I was not the only one to feel this. My friend Jay also felt as I did. He looked at me multiple times and he didn't even have to say anything. He felt it too. The only thing on my mind at this point was to remove myself from the negative energy and to return back to nature. I left the apartment and sat on the stoop to smoke a cigarette with Jay. Both he and I were mystified at how there was very negative energy surrounding and consuming P. I have been friends with P for such a long time, but there was something about him that wasn't right. Jay had a great positive aura, and our energies meshed to form an even better energy. I was I was starting to enjoy my trip again when P exited the apartment and came outside with us. Instantly, this hot, horrible energy was consuming me. My mouth was dry, and I felt this overwhelming feeling of dread. The only thing on my mind was to get away from P. Jay and I would walk away from him, and P would follow, not understanding what the problem was. And we didn't want to tell him because most people wouldn't react very well if you tell them they have an extremely negative aura about them, and we didn't want to be near it, especially when he just consumed 3 hits of acid so he couldn't trip with us. After a while, it seemed as if P gave up and returned back to the apartment to hang out, and Z and others. Jay and I were trying to decide what to do because we couldn't be with this negative energy. It was creating this awful feeling of dread, and all I wanted to do was leave. We went inside to borrow someone's phone, and as we entered, I was instantly confronted with this wave of unbearably hot energy flowing throughout this dark apartment with surround sound, death metal P, and grotesquely chewing this brownie. He wasn't talking of positive. He was seeing the negative in everything, gorging himself and being demeaning while listening to hardcore death metal. This honestly freaked me out beyond belief. I had never been confronted with such negative, hot, awful energy. It was as if pure evil. It was trying to wrap himself around me and deplete my positive energy. I was not going to let this happen. I immediately left the apartment. Jay and I started to trip at each other out of the negative energy, and the only thing we could talk about was getting a ride out of here and going to his roommate's birthday party. We ended up walking around the neighborhood and talking about the negative energy and the positive versus the negative. This is when Jay also started to turn negative. He wanted to return to the house, and his aura was repelling mine. This freaked me out to another degree. I asked him if he wanted to be good, and he started to walk away from me. He started to head towards the negative energy in the apartment, so I took off the other way. This is when I started to go ape shit. I entered this unbelievably head trip. The only thing I wanted to do was bathe myself in the pure sea of light to escape this constraints of the physical world. I wanted to have full dissolution of the ego. All I could think about was God and being closer to him. I wanted to go back with the universe and God and all good entities of the cosmos. I started to sing in this loud archaic voice, expressing my love for the omnipotent, praising the universe, crying out for the negative. I was consumed by this unbelievably powerful primordial energy that was exploding within me. At this time, blades of grass turned into millions, the frames of apartments shift into intertwined, and it was getting dark, and reality seemed to be like a carnival. I saw this gigantic white light, and I knew that I had to go near it. I had to enter into the light. It was the only thing to do to escape the negativity from around me. As I got closer to the light, I felt the strong urge to merge with it, to become one with it, to cease to exist, leave the physical realm. This is when my head slammed into the light post and I was knocked unconscious. When I woke up, there were cops and paramedics all around me. I felt as if I was watching my body. I thought this was it. I thought I was dead. There were 4 police officers around me. Paramedics huddled around me, asking me all these questions. I thought these were the gatekeepers. I thought that I was only able to see them now because I was dead. I thought they were here to either take me to hell or take me to heaven. This isn't necessarily the Catholic or any version of heaven or hell. It was just the negative or the positive. They asked me all these questions, and at this time, my pupils had to have been quarters. I was peaking off 3 hits of very, very strong acid, and I had been smoking harsh and hash and pot all night long. They thought I was drunk, but I certainly wasn't drunk. They asked me if I had been smoking crystal or doing heroin or tripping or smoking crack. I eventually mussed up of the uttered words that I was tripping on acid because they eventually found out. I kept asking if they were good people, and at this point, it gets a little fuzzy. And I honestly think that they thought the situation to be quite humorous, and they weren't doing anything to make me any more calm. They put handcuffs on me extremely tight and kept shining a light in my eyes and saying weird stuff. I thought that the gatekeepers had decided that I was not good and that I was a bad person, so they must take me to hell. At this point, I started to struggle. I tried to run away, and I nearly succeeded as I was tripping balls and in a pretty good physique shape and physical shape. The 3 male police officers ended up restraining me and throwing me in the back of the car. The entire ride to the police station was extremely fuzzy. The police officer didn't say a word the entire time, and it didn't even click that I was being taken to jail. What my mind kept telling me is that I was dead and I was being sent to hell because the primordial energy force had decided I was bad. This freaked me the fuck out. I also didn't realize that in my pocket was about 20 grams of hash and a bowl. I wouldn't find this out till the next morning. After pulling into the police station, I was pretty much in and out of awareness. I remember them putting the jumpsuit on me and laying on the concrete ground. Eventually, I was led to a cell and they told me to walk in. I entered, and then I realized in my mind that this was a hell cell. I had to do anything I possibly could to get myself out. So before he shut the door, I ran out. He put me back in the cell, but I ran out again. I was not going to go willingly into this hell cell. There was no way. Eventually, he managed to get me to the hell door shut, and I was locked in this concrete room with not even a foot-by-foot window on the cell door. There was a dirt and sticky shit all over the metal bench beds and the metal toilet with brown dirt and rings all over it. At this point, I nearly went insane. As far as I knew, I was in hell, locked away in this room forever. It was hot in the cell. There was constant running of water that dripped as if it was Chinese water torture. There were all kinds of people that I couldn't see in my mind, hell beings. They were coughing and wheezing and banging on the doors, and then I heard blood-curdling screams, the auditory hallucinations from the barely audible TV that seemed to be somewhere off in the distance. So peeking in a nasty jail cell with water dripping and screams and pounding while believing I was in hell freaked me the fuck out. The only thought in my mind was to call out to God and the universe and beg for mercy to be plead with the life force to let me out. Everyone I had ever encountered in my life was visualized. I tried to picture my interactions with them, good and bad. I felt that I had good interactions with them and lived a good life, always trying to think about others and try to treat people with respect. I loved people. I loved my girlfriend. I tried to do anything I could to help my mom. I just didn't understand why I had been sent to hell. I started to sing, I love God, I'm sorry for all the negative I have done. I want to be with you. This sounds a bit corny, but think about what you would do if you were locked in a jail cell, peaking on 3 hits of strong acid, and thought you were in the pits of hell, hallucinating people screaming. And I was singing in the best, most passionate, primordial voice I could. I did this for hours. These people probably thought I lost my fucking marbles, but they didn't understand what was going on in my head. At one point, I stopped singing and I started to look at the small mirror, and my face was completely flushed. My hair was going in 9 different directions. My pupils were quarters, and my face was morphing into all kinds of evil things. This took me to another level. I thought this meant I was truly evil and that God was right. and that I deserve to be tortured and stuck here forever without food or water. I believed that if I drank out of the faucet that I would start to wheeze, and like other people, I think they were wheezing because they were cigarette smokers or 20 years and something like that. One more thing I did to confirm that I was in hell was check the tag on my jumpsuit, and it seemed as if the marker of the jumpsuit was a primordial joke. It said made by Bob Barker. I thought the Bob Barker from The Price is Right. This is was just done as a joke by the evil force. And underneath that said tumble dry. I thought hell and dryness, obviously, that was the washing directions, but I didn't understand at the time. Eventually, I started to come down and was wondering if I was really in hell or if it was just a jail cell. At this point, recalling a gatekeeper encountering it was so funny. I wouldn't figure out everything till I talked to people who watched me get arrested and until I talked to the cops. Eventually, I got a cop to talk to me for 15 minutes because I told her I was going insane. I thought God sent me to hell and I didn't understand what I had done. She told me I was in jail and I would be let out in 12 hours. This instantly made me come down and I felt 300% better. I thanked her for giving me a minute and telling me what was going on. She proceeded to tell me drugs ruin lives, and she knows of people who did drugs and one time and became addicted. Yada, 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 drugs are bad. The rest of the night was uneventful and was spent pacing the cell and meditating on everything that had happened. The next morning, I bailed myself out and I was let out. I learned that I was charged with drug paraphernalia and disorderly conduct for trying to run away. What I thought was quite humorous is I wasn't charged with the hash, and it was left in my pants pocket. I walked to McDonald's and ordered some food the next day and told the guy at the register what happened. He offered to drive me back to my college, and I paid him in hash for the ride. Craziest night of my life. We'll never do acid again.